Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Sunday Career Success. I am Bill, the company's expert, and today we are going to talk about informational interviews. This is a bit of a more advanced topic for anybody who is looking for a job. This will be a way of getting a job. This is also for people who want to advance their careers, and we have talked previously about different methods of getting a job. The default method for a lot of people, of course, is answering job ads. And that is not necessarily the most effective way, but it's the default way that a lot of people start out doing. Then we have mentioned also about the hidden job market and networking as the most effective way of getting a job, because somewhere in the area of about 75% of all jobs are obtained through networking by tapping the hidden job market. So we have talked about that on a previous live stream. Today, we're going to talk about a little bit more of an advanced method for getting a job. And it can serve a variety of purposes too, not just to discover jobs in the hidden job market, but also to be able to switch careers if you are someone who has the problem of wanting to switch their career. So perhaps you've worked for 10 years or 15 years or something in one industry, and now you're trying to perhaps start over or jump sideways into a different industry. In this modern world in which we live, that is not always what the system is set up to handle. So recruiters are not really geared to candidates who are doing this. So one way to sort of bypass that and allow you to do this is, once again, informational interviews. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, just a reminder, there is a chat. We are live, so there is a chat. So if you are tuning into this, I'm not sure if anyone is, but if you are, please get in the chat. You can ask questions. This is, after all, a Q&A session. That's what it primarily is. And if you are in the chat, say who you are and where you're from and ask a question, and I will jump right in and answer any questions you may have. As I mentioned last time, I'm still sort of a novice at live streaming. I'm just getting my chops down for live streaming. So feel free to do that. And once again, this is my secondary channel. My main channel is called The Company's Expert. So if you are not subscribed to that, go and check out my videos. Most of them are about how to get a job and how to further your career. So today I figured what I would do is I'm going to divide this into maybe 4 sections about informational interviews. And the first one would be, what is an informational interview? If you've never heard of this, or you're curious about exactly how it works and what it is, we're going to talk about that. The second part is conducting an informational interview. How do you actually do this? If you are sitting down, say at a Starbucks or something like that, and across the table from you is the CEO of a company that you have invited to come and have a conversation with you, what do you say? What do you talk about? That's the second part. The third one is methods for discovering and connecting to people for which you can do informational interviews, okay? And the fourth one is how to request an informational interview. So once you're connected with these people, usually higher up, CEOs, executives, or higher, then the question is, how do you get them to agree to grant you an informational interview? And I'm going to be providing a couple of scripts that have worked for me. Someone says, "Hello, howdy, from Georgia, AT. Welcome, AT. That's great to see people here." So just to start off, I was the CEO of a company a long time ago. I've been an executive. I've switched careers a few times. I've worked in a couple of different industries. Started off working in the railroad, worked for big multinational companies, then moved over to aerospace, then over to IT, then to being essentially in a smaller business, industrial businesses working with electrical power products, things like this, and then over to being a consultant. So I've had a few different careers, and they span all levels and they span different size companies. And my consulting business that I've been in for the last 7 or 8 years I built it essentially exclusively by doing informational interviews. All the clients I obtained were obtained through informational interviews. So this is something that is kind of close to my heart. I feel very strongly that this can work for a lot of people. So that's where I'm coming from. And as I said, in the last section of this, I'm going to share some scripts that I used, that I created, that worked for me. And hopefully they may work for you too. There isn't one right answer on how to do things, especially when it comes to HR. There's many different ways that work in different situations for different people with different backgrounds who have different goals. And I'm just going to share with you today some of the things that helped this work for me. So let's start at the beginning. So what is an informational interview? An informational interview is very simply you having a conversation with somebody else. Okay, so let's pretend that you are looking for a job and you are, say, currently unemployed, and perhaps you've had a career in an industry. Let's just pick an industry at random here. How about banking? Okay, I mean, for want of an industry, let's pick banking. No offense to you bankers out there, but I'm not a big fan of the banking industry. But let's say banking. Let's say you have some kind of experience or qualification in banking. And let's pretend that perhaps you have moved to a different location. Maybe you have moved to a different city and you're new in the city. And priority number one, you need to get yourself a job. So one of the things you can do is set up informational interviews with people in the banking industry. Okay, and what this is you basically sit down with the other individual. You ask them, hey, I would very much like to speak with you, if that works for you. And then you get together. Now, this can occur at the other person's office, or it could occur in a neutral location, which is, in my experience, far more effective. Like the default thing for me was you would go to a Starbucks. Not very original, but it worked. You would just meet the person at a Starbucks at a pre-arranged time, and you would this would be the first time you are meeting, and you have a conversation, usually around about half an hour. I have had them that have gone for 2 hours, but half an hour is the more standard kind of time. And what this is you are asking the other person questions about them. Okay, it could be about their job, what they do. It could be about their company, what their company does. It could be about their industry, how that industry works, or some sort of high-level industry-related questions. And you could be getting this person's opinion on the present, the past, the future, where the industry's going, where the company's going, what skills are required in that industry. Basically, the sky's the limit. You're asking them questions that are business related, and the idea is that you will be getting information. Okay, so that's basically what an informational interview is. Now, an important point here is that a lot of people, like I teach in universities on the side, and a lot of students, when I mention this to my students on occasion, their first kind of question is, well, why would anyone want to talk to me? Or you, for that matter. Why would anyone take a request to talk to a stranger? Okay, and this is time out of their day that they're dedicating to this. Why would anyone do that? There doesn't seem to be anything in it for them. And that's a perfectly natural question. And the answer is very simple. Well, actually, there's a couple answers, but the number one answer is that it is flattering. If somebody contacts you out of the blue and says, hey, I really am impressed by your background and your position and your industry and your company, and I would very much like to get your expert opinion on a couple of questions I have about the industry. Would you be able to spare me a little bit of your time to answer some questions? I will meet you any place, any time, anywhere, at a place of your convenience. You just let me know if what's convenient for you, and I will be there because I'd very much like to talk to you. Now, if you phrase that properly, most regular human beings are flattered when we get this because it doesn't happen very often for most people. You don't really go through life everybody praising you and saying, wow, you really, really know your stuff. I would love to have you spare me, a few minutes of your time that I could learn from you. Teach me. I'm very interested in what you think and what you know. As human beings, we tend to be very flattered when somebody says this to us. So a huge part of it is that motivation. That's kind of why this works as a concept generally. Now, in addition to that, there's other reasons too. Now, if you're an executive, you're a C-level executive, you're a vice president, and this also applies to people a little bit lower down who are in the sales, marketing functions or departments of the company. Your job, part of your job, your 9 to 5, your daily duties in your role is to receive requests from the public. Okay, so people outside of your company that you haven't had prior dealings with. This could be the press. This could be potential customers. This could be potential partners. This could be government, regulators or other government, functionaries that have a specific reason to speak with you. Or it could be just special interest groups or just members of the public. And part of your job description as an executive, this is either implicit or explicitly stated, is that you need to represent your organization to the public and represent it in a very positive light. Okay, that's part of your job. And a lot of executives, this is something that occurs very often to them. They will get people who they don't know requesting a meeting, requesting a phone call, requesting a sort of exchange or conversation with them. And the entire full reason behind this is not always clearly stated. It just, I would very much like to talk to you. Do you have any time? And so this is a normal thing. Now, when you get higher up in an organization, you realize this. If you're at the worker level at the bottom, this doesn't usually happen, and it's not part of your job. If you're a middle manager in the sort of the middle of the org chart, the organizational chart, this doesn't really happen either. It's not a regular thing for you. Usually you have your specific job within the company and you do your job and you're very busy and you don't have, time to entertain requests from outside of the company, from the public. That's not usually what happens unless you are in, say, the sales department or marketing, something like that. Then you may be used to this, but most people won't be. Certainly if you're in operations, this is a new thing for you. Okay, so those type of people, they don't usually deal with this. But if you're an executive, no matter what type of executive, no matter what department, if you're the CFO or the COO, CIO, you're the chief marketing officer, you're the VP of a division or a product line, this will be a known thing for you, and it'll take up regularly part of your time. Okay, so that's basically an informational interview. It's just a conversation, and the idea is for the person making the request to get information from the person who works at the organization. That's the idea. So my point is that this occurs. This is a regular thing, and it occurs for a variety of different reasons and contexts. However, it can be used to get a job. And the great thing about it is that, number one, it's very effective. And number two, it's kind of under the radar because a lot of people don't do this. And the reason they don't do it is because there's a little bit, it's a little bit involved. There's a few things you need to know, more so than how to respond to a job application. Okay. It's also an opportunity, an informational interview is an opportunity to make a network connection. We tend to see people at the higher level in organizations doing this for that purpose. They network, and they network because there's no direct benefit, but there's usually a big indirect benefit. Just by having people in your network, those people could turn into business partners, customers, vendors, suppliers down the road. Okay, so this is something that is done. So that's what an informational interview is. It's just that simple. Now, how to do an informational interview. Okay, this is something that a lot of people know, but if this is new to you, I will just sort of just walk you through it. First of all, kind of just a miscellaneous rule here. If you contact someone and you say, I'd very much like to speak with you, you don't know me, but this is who I am and I have some questions. Let's get together and have a conversation. Just one kind of unintuitive thing for beginners is never suggest lunch. Okay, like people are not really inclined to have lunch with a stranger, someone they don't know. But you can suggest grabbing a coffee, okay, like a drink. That's a little bit, more of a bite-sized kind of commitment. Someone that you don't know says, I'd like to talk to you. Could we go grab a drink? Grab a coffee or something. That's a bit more reasonable rather than let's have like an hour and a half lunch together, where there's money involved. There's, a bigger time commitment involved. So never suggest lunch. That expression, let's do lunch. You don't do that to people you don't know. If you're sort of cold contacting someone, suggest a coffee is usually a good way to go. And the informational interview, remember, it's not about you. It's about them. You're here to ask them questions so that they tell you stuff. You are not there to tell the other person all about you. Number one, that's extremely boring. Having a stranger tell you all about them, I know it sounds bad to say, but usually in this context, that's not really what people are into. The reason people would accept this kind of request is to get something out of it. And if they can't get anything directly out of it, it's just a flattering experience when somebody asks you about you and what you think. We enjoy talking about ourselves. We enjoy talking about our thoughts, our opinions, our experiences, and this taps into that. So when you have this meeting, don't start lecturing the person all about you. Ask them questions about them. And we're going to get more into that later. Find, a good tip that I always did, and that's just good for beginners, is to find something that you admire about their operation or their background and compliment them on it, and then ask them about it. That usually gets people talking. If someone comes up to you and says, I noticed you went to this school, a few years ago. How was that? How did you find it? Did you find that you really used that knowledge in the rest of your life so far? Or was it kind of, very theoretical and you haven't really applied it? What was your experience? That tends to get people talking, that type of question. So that's a great thing of how to do an informational interview. Just do a series of those. Do not bring a resume to an informational interview, because it's very important that when you contact someone and say, I'd very much like to hear your opinion on this or get your thoughts on this, you don't show up and then try and ask them for a job. That's a huge turnoff to people. Even if you're looking for a job, and that's what this could be about, but you don't want the other person to feel that, there was an ulterior motive behind it. Now I see why we're talking. Okay, you're trying to get a job at my company and you're unemployed. Okay, gotcha. Right? That's not what you want them to feel or how you want them to regard you or the entire meeting. Right? So don't even bring a resume with you. If for whatever reason they ask you for a resume, you want to be able to say, sorry, I don't have my resume on me, because you don't want it to appear like you had planned to canvass them for a job the whole time, right? You don't want them to feel that there's an ulterior motive. You want them to feel that you're genuinely interested in what they have to say. And indeed, that's why you should be doing this, right? So no deception, be honest. If you're interested in, if you're honest about wanting to know how a certain person, how their career has worked, or how this company operates, or how this industry is operating, and what are the trends and all, if you genuinely want to know that stuff, then feel that way, and don't, have all your resume and everything all ready to go. Okay, that will send a lot of red flags to the other person, and it'll probably make the whole thing useless. Because it signals that they can't trust you. You said one thing, but you're really wanting something else. If that's all they know about you, that would be a bad first impression, and probably the only impression you're ever going to be able to make to them. Okay, so you can ask them initially about an event from their career, something, if you looked at their LinkedIn profile, something you noticed on their LinkedIn profile. People tend to like to talk about themselves, and that will really get the conversation flowing. And then just let them talk. Okay, let them talk. That's the whole point. People enjoy talking. Let them talk. Don't lecture them about you. Don't cut them off. Don't ask sort of yes or no questions. Ask open-ended questions. Say, what did you think of this? Or how did this go? Or, what did you find was what was the biggest thing you learned about your experience here? Was it this or that? Or, ask open-ended questions so that the other person can just talk. And what you will get out of this is the other person will talk for a reasonably long time with you, and it will flow. It'll be fun for them, and then therefore presumably fun for you, and they will enjoy it. They will enjoy meeting you. They will enjoy interacting with you. And then at the end of it, you could leave the meeting by say, a lot of times people exchange business cards. Here's my card. Here's my contact information. And you can say, oh, great. If I have any questions in the future, would I be able to call you and ask? And 90% of the time people say, yeah, sure. And there you go. There's the card of the CEO. The CEO of this company knows you, likes you, and has given you permission to call them up directly if you have a question about something. That's a really cool thing to have. And this is how a lot of executives operate. Okay, if you are a company owner or you are a company manager at an executive level, this is kind of a thing that you do, for those who don't know. So for someone who is looking to work in an industry, say you're looking to work in the banking industry, this would be very handy to have. The CEO of a local credit union or whatever knows you, likes you. You have their direct information, their contact information, and you can call them up anytime you have a question. I mean, don't pester them, but you have that option, and they've given you permission to do that. Now imagine if in the future you are perhaps, let's say you're applying for a posted job at the company. The most standard thing you can do is, they post a job and you send in your application. You could call the CEO, the person the person you met, and say, yeah, hi, it's me. How you doing? I just noticed that your company posted a position, for this role. Would it make sense for me to apply for that? I have some experience in that area. Do you know if it's filled yet, or do you guys have like an internal candidate in mind? Would it make sense for me to apply? Now, most of the time they'll say, sure, yeah, no problem. Go ahead and apply. Then what you can do is you can contact the head of HR at that company, the director of HR, VP of HR, whatever they have, and say, yeah, hi, it's me. And just so you know, I put in an application for this job because, your boss, the CEO, recommended that to me that I should. And I just wanted to make sure that you get my resume and that it's not lost in the shuffle. And I'd very much appreciate you taking a look at that and let me know if there's anything else you need. Now, that's very handy to have. That sets up your application for a job through standard channels, okay, but it gives it usually a considerable boost, because if this is indeed true, and they can, and the director of HR can check with the CEO and say, yeah, I got this guy who called, he applied for this job, and that's so I'm going to take a look at it. You can bet that the director of HR is going to look very closely at your resume. It's not going to get lost in the shuffle. They're going to give it all consideration. So that is, it gives you, as I said, it gives your job application a considerable boost. Now, I see there's a question also from my friend AT. I've only been on one informational interview. I've found starting the interview by saying, I just wanted to learn more, seemed to make the atmosphere a lot lighter. Do you find that's usually the case? Yes, it's very important that these are very positive. Okay, it shouldn't be awkward. It shouldn't be stressful or unreasonably stressful. You should have a very pleasant, light conversation. Remember, you are not trying to get anything out of these people other than a little bit of information, and if you start it with like, as you say here, I just wanted to learn more. You could say, yeah, I just, for example, let's go back to our banking industry example. You could say, I have 10 years, 15 years experience in banking back at this company in this other city. And I'm just wanting to learn a bit more about the banking industry here. Who are the players here? And, how does it work here? I understand this region, this city, or this geographic area, it has a different economic makeup than the city I came from. So therefore, the banking customers and clients here are different, whether they're businesses or they're the general public. They have slightly different needs, and I'm just wanting to learn a bit more about what are kind of the trends that are taking off over here, as opposed to maybe what I'd seen previously. I'm just wanting to learn a bit more about that, or learn about what's really hot right now in terms of like the big innovation area that you guys are doing, or the entire industry is doing over here, something like that. Now, usually if you ask an executive about the work that they do, this is something that's at the forefront of their minds. This is something they think about every hour of every day, or every hour that they're at work, certainly. They know a lot about it. They are constantly thinking about it. So they will have something to say about it. And usually it's like opening the floodgates. When you ask them about something that they know a lot about and care a lot about, they open up about it. And they are usually flattered that, finally somebody who is interested in what I know and what I care about and wants to hear my thoughts on it. It's a very flattering thing, and it will tend to open it up. So that's a great question. The answer to your question is yes, I do find that that's usually the case. And, you don't say this, but you're saying, I just want to learn more. If you are a student and, you're not maybe actively looking for a job right now, but you are currently going to school, you're in university or college or something like that, you can do this. And if you say, I am a student and I just wanted to learn more about your industry and the work that someone in your position does, people find that very flattering, and saying, I just wanted to learn more. That's usually a great thing to ask, or a great thing to say, and then ask them questions about specific things. If you just said, I just want to learn, and then just, stop talking, that might be a bit weird. But if you say, I'm just wanting to learn a bit more about this, would you be able to maybe explain this specific thing? That would be a great way to do it. So excellent question. Thank you very much. And anybody else who has questions, ask them. That's what I'm here for. Okay, in the meantime, so we're talking about informational interviews. We talked about what is an informational interview. We talked about maybe how to conduct them. Okay. third thing I want to talk about is the methods of discovering and connecting to the people that you would ask for informational interviews. So like I said in the very beginning, this is something you do with people at a high level. You start at the top and go down rather than starting at the bottom and going up. Okay. So if you are wanting to do an informational interview, my recommendation, and people find this weird when I say this, but it's absolutely true. Go to the very top. Go to the CEO or the C-level executives. Okay. Number one, these are the people that can help you the most. Number two, these are the people that are most inclined to accept an informational interview. A lot of people, a lot of students, and a lot of younger people find that surprising, but it's absolutely true. These are the people that it is part of their job to be public facing and to take requests like this from the public. Okay, so this is part of what they do. Now, the caveat is that you have to approach them in an appropriate professional way, and that's what we're going to talk about. But provided that you do this, okay, you need to go to the people at the top. I always went directly to the CEO. Now, when I say this, I'm talking about companies up to about 5,000 people, something like that. For example, a story that I've told my students many times because it was remarkable to me. It stood out for me, and I've done a lot of informational interviews. I think like a couple hundred. I haven't counted in a while, but one of them was the CEO of an international airport, big international airport. I don't know how many employees they have exactly. It might even be more than 5,000. I'm not sure, but did this. Now, how many people do you think are contacting the CEO of a 5,000 employee operation and saying, I'd very much like to speak with you? Not as many as you'd think. And being a CEO of a much smaller company, I can tell you that it's not a regular thing. It's not like you have the press constantly beating down their door to talk to them. So you distinguish yourself. You stand out. This is not a typical request. They'll get requests for informational interviews, but it's not like they get 100 a day. They probably get one a day, maybe, depending. Okay, so let's talk about the methods of discovering and connecting to these people. So number one, you want to go to executives. You want to go to people at the top. If you want to start somewhere, start with the CEO. If you have specific needs, like, you're a finance person or an accountant, then I suppose you could also target CFOs, chief financial officers, something like that, I suppose. Okay, they would probably be in the same boat. Okay, in my experience, they're in the same boat. But for want of a place to start with the CEO. Even if you're a student, even if you're 21 years old, you don't have a big career, you feel that you might not be an authority to talk to a CEO. Let me tell you, I was a CEO. You have every authority to talk to them as long as you are professional, you are polite, you're respectful like you would be to any other human being. There's absolutely nothing inappropriate about doing this, and you will be surprised to find how many of these people agree to speak with you, to grant you an informational interview. Okay, you will be surprised. Now, the most popular way of doing this for me was LinkedIn. LinkedIn is an incredible tool. It's probably the best tool to see inside of organizations, to look down at the individuals and find which person is in which position and what their background is. Okay, it also signals different things about them. Like, for example, if you are trying to impress them for whatever reason, for example, if you're trying to send a resume to them, what do you think they might want to see on a resume? Well, look what they've put on their resume. Look at their LinkedIn profile. That's basically their resume. That gives you a model of what they think is appropriate and desirable. Okay, that may signal certain things to you too. Okay, so LinkedIn is the number one way to connect to these people. And if you have a large network of people in your hometown, okay, like if you're connected to like 1,000 people or something in your hometown, when you do a search for companies or organizations in your hometown, chances are a lot of the executives will show up as search results because they will be, first, second, or third degree connections. And the way LinkedIn at least used to work, I believe it still does work this way, is in order for people to show up in the search results when you search for a company, you have to be connected to them either as a first degree connection or a second degree connection, like someone who knows them, that's a second degree connection, or a third degree connection, someone who knows them, right? So so the larger network you have, the more effective your search will be, unless you get, like, I guess, a paid account. I know they have paid accounts and they have different privileges. So I suppose if you paid like LinkedIn $50 a month or whatever, you'd be able to get this functionality without having a giant network. Might make sense. So LinkedIn for sure is number one. You can connect directly to these people. You discover who they are. You discover their name, their title, and you have the ability to send them a message over LinkedIn. And I know that LinkedIn has like in-mails and stuff like that. I personally, I never use those myself. What I would do is I would connect with that person and then send them a message. Because if you're connected to somebody, you don't, there's no restrictions. You can send them a message whenever you want. Now, Google Maps is another great tool. I did a video on this on my other channel, my main channel, The Company's Expert, about how to discover jobs or employers in your hometown. And the short version is go to Google Maps, type in your hometown. So you're looking at a big map of your hometown, and then type in, say, banking or banks, and all the businesses will pop up on the map, and you can see where they are. You can see what they're called. You have links to their website. You have their phone numbers, their general email address, for what that's worth. Okay, so you can discover the companies, and then you go on to LinkedIn and you type in that company, or those companies one at a time, and you find all the individuals that are in the company. So here, this is the CEO. So let's say you find a bank, and it's called Bill's First International Bank of Money, and that shows up on your hometown map when you type in bank, right? So here we go. There's a bank, Bill's International House of Money. And what I do now is I go over to LinkedIn, and in companies, I type in Bill's International Bank of Money, and I do a people search, and all the people that are on LinkedIn that you are connected to in some way show up. So there we go. There's the CEO. It's a lady. Her name is Jane Smith. And there's the CFO, Chief Financial Officer. That's a guy. His name's John Smith. And you can connect to those people. You could see their LinkedIn profile, and then you could send them a message. So this is how you can find those people to ask for informational interviews. And as you can imagine, there are a lot of targets for you to go through. Chances are you will find hundreds and hundreds of people who are executives at companies in your industry or are related to your industry. And that's many, many, many people to connect with one-on-one and say, hey, I'd very much like to speak with you. You could also try more traditional methods. You could just Google the company if you know the company, and then, maybe or Google company and CEO, or Google the company and, CFO or vice president, and see if people pop up in the Google results. That's another way to do it. Or, I suppose technically you could do the traditional approach where you, back in the day, and not to date myself or anything, but back in the day, you could grab the yellow pages and you look under, banks, and you see all the companies there, and you call them, and then you say, hi, I'd like to talk to your CEO or your CFO or whatever. I suppose you could do that. I would not recommend that. There's far more effective ways to do that. But if you're like a phone person, you're the type of person that loves to do cold calls, if that's you, then that would be something to do. That's not me. I wouldn't do it that way, but hey, whatever floats your boat, right? So there's different ways of discovering targets, if that's what you want to call them, to do informational interviews. The far most effective, as far as I'm concerned, is LinkedIn. LinkedIn connected to, like, if you know the companies, if it's connected to a Google search in your hometown on Google Maps, search for your industry, find the companies, enter the companies into LinkedIn, find the individuals, contact the individuals. So that would be methods of discovering, connecting. And then the fourth part of all of this is, now that you're connected to potential targets, potential people you'd like to do informational interviews with, now that you know what an informational interview is and what to say when you're in front of the person, let's talk about how to request an informational interview. Okay, so let's say you're looking at LinkedIn and here's the individual you'd love to speak to. The CEO of a local credit union. Okay, you're in banking. They're the CEO of a local credit union. They employ maybe, 100 people, right? And what you'd like to do is you'd like to be on a first name basis with this individual. You would like to, I got an itchy nose today for some reason. You would like to contact them. You'd like to get a nice free-flowing conversation with them. So what do you say to them? How do you approach them? Okay, well, basically there's a few ground rules here. Things that I think apply universally are, first of all, no broken English. Okay, you want to approach these people in a professional way. So if they know absolutely nothing about you, they are going to form their opinion of you based on the communication you send. Okay, so if you send them a little note saying, I'd very much like to speak with you, their sum total of knowledge about you is going to come from that communication. So no broken English. No spelling mistakes, no grammatical mistakes. Write professionally, okay? Number one. You must present yourself professionally, so don't be overly casual. Don't be like, hey, dude, let's grab a coffee. A bit too familiar, a bit, too unprofessional. So you want to be respectful. You want to be professional. Okay, that's the theme of this. Okay. And basically you're making an expertise request. Okay. So don't contact them in such a way that signals that you don't really know who they are or what they do. Okay. Sometimes you get spam emails. It's from people that, I'd like to offer you a job, but they know nothing about you, right? They have no idea who you are, what your background is, because they're just sort of emailing people at random, right? And you can totally tell, right? You might be the vice president who works at a bank and they're contacting you. Yeah, I'd like to give you a job. It's an entry-level job, data entry, for our company part-time. It's like, if you knew anything about me, you would know that isn't, probably not appropriate, or suitable. Okay, so you need to convey that you know who they are. You say like, hi, I have looked at your background, being, moving up in banking, being an authority on banking in this city, and being an executive to boot. I'd very much like to get your expert opinion on the banking industry in this location, right? You obviously know who they are when you say things like that. Okay. Now let's just get to the meat and potatoes here. Let's get to some scripts that I wrote for myself. Okay, I'm sort of sharing these for the first time here. Now, this is how I did it. Doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. It may not even be the best way, but it worked for me, and this is what I did. So what I would do is I would connect with people on LinkedIn, and I would send a sort of standard connection request. And you know how you can send a little message, a blurb with a connection request. For those of you who are not familiar with LinkedIn, just think of Facebook like a friend request, right? You click on, I'd like to add you as my friend, that kind of thing. And the other person has to accept So same thing. So you would send a message with it. I would say, hi, whatever the person's name was, their first name, hi, John, or, whatever, right? Hi, Percival, whatever your name happens to be. Hi, Thong. Very unfortunate name that some people have. Hi, John. I see that we have some connections in common. I'd like to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Thanks and best regards. And then my name and a couple of letters after my name, if you have them. So just very short, very professional. And you're acknowledging that, like, I haven't met you. I don't actually know you, but I see that we are connected to the same people. So for that reason, I'd very much like to add you to my network. Thank you very much. Very polite, very professional. Everything is out in the open. This is why I'm connecting with you. Right? So that was my little tiny script, if you want to call it that, for connecting to people. And it's a numbers game. Like most things in anything to do with career type stuff, getting a job, it's a numbers game. Okay, so what I found was back in the day, several years ago when I was doing this a lot, the success rate for me was about 30%. So what that meant was that for every 10 people I sent this to, 3 people would accept. Okay? And 7 wouldn't. So what that means is that if you want 30 new connections that are CEOs, and yes, and everything I'm quoting here are CEOs. So 30% connection rate for CEOs. So if you want 30 new connections in your hometown, in your industry, that are CEOs of organizations, you could send essentially that script, that blurb. And then you get 30 new connections. You send it to 100 people, you get 30. Okay? Now, there are certain things, there's certain caveats there. You have to have your LinkedIn profile set up looking professionally, because I imagine a lot of people, what they do, and I have seen this, that one of the things they do is they go and they look at your profile before they say yes or no. Who is this person? Right? They can see your title, they can see your picture, they can see your name, they can see your work history, stuff like that. Okay? Now, I've taught students how to do this. And let me tell you, you don't have to be anyone fancy for CEOs to accept your connection. You just have to be professional. I've had a lot of students who are students. You go to their LinkedIn profile and they say they are a student. They are studying this at this school. Here's their picture. Here's their name. Here's their title. It's, student of, HR, student of business, student of marketing, student of operations, whatever, Lean Six Sigma, focus, whatever. And they will get the same success rate as me, sometimes more so. So that's all you need to get connected to CEOs. So you now have the method, and then you have the little script, and that's all you have to do. Now, if you want to know how to fix up your LinkedIn profile so it looks halfway decent, if you're not 100% sure of how to do that, I've done a previous live stream. It was the live stream last Sunday on Sunday Career Success. So go and listen to that. So now you're connected. Okay. So now you don't do this immediately. You wait at least a few days, maybe a week or two. And then you send a second message. Okay. Now that you're connected to this person, you send a second message. And this time you're requesting an informational interview. Okay. And I had many sort of scripts. I phrased it different ways, but here's one that's probably the standard, if you want to call it that, of what I used. And this is how it goes. You would send a message saying, hi, John, or whatever their first name. Hi, John. You have a very impressive background. I was hoping to get your expert opinion on a couple of points regarding the banking industry, like whatever industry. I'm wondering if you'd be open to meeting with me for this. Perhaps a 30-minute coffee meeting? Let me know if this works for you. If it does, please advise a date, time, and place of your choosing. Thanks and best regards. And then my name. And then my title. Or not really a title, but the letters after my name. And that's it. You just send that you can make that, I suppose, as a template and change the name and the industry possibly, for different people. But that's basically what you send out. It's polite. It's professional. It signals that you know who they are. It signals that you value what they have and what they know. And the theme is, I'd very much like to ask for your expert opinion on this question. And it's usually something about their industry. And what I found was the success rate for this was 30% also. So that means of all the connections you have. So if you had 30 connections that are CEOs, okay, and you sent this message or one very similar to it to all 30, what's 30% of 30? About what? 9, something like that. You would get 9 informational interviews lined up. 9 people would say, "Sure, yeah, let's talk. How is this place and time for you?" And you might have to move, and it's like, "Oh, I'd love to make that, but would you be able to make this?" Or could you send me another couple of dates, possibly in a week after that might work for you? You might have to do a bit of that, unfortunately. As much as possible, just try and make the meeting. If they suggest a time, just, sure, I'll be there. And that would work, as I said, that would work 30% of the time. So if you originally contacted 100 CEOs for 100 companies in your hometown and you sent out connection requests, what I found is I would get 30% response rate, give or take. So that'd be 30 connections. And of those 30 connections, if I sent a message like this to them, then I would get another 30% response rate. So I get about 9 informational interviews. You get maybe at least 5 for sure if you went to 100 people. That may vary by industry, by place. It might vary depending on what your LinkedIn profile looks like. But I found that if students did this, they pretty much replicated those same success rates. So don't think that this doesn't apply to you. It does. It applies to everyone. It's not who you are. It's it's what you say when you communicate and how you present yourself. Okay. And then I had a third script, and I don't know if this is really a script. This is one example I copied from that I used a few years ago. The third step. Now, for me, it was asking for consulting work. Okay. This may vary. If you're looking for a job, it would be asking for employment opportunities, or, if you're looking for customers, I suppose that would be another possible, thing you could want to get out of this. So it's going to vary. Now, for me, it was consulting work, but just to give you an idea of what things you could say if it made sense for you, here's the script I copied here. So, hi, John, or whoever the person is. Thanks for meeting with me, the other day, like last Tuesday, whatever, or yesterday. I was really impressed with your operation. I've been thinking about some of the things you said during your meeting, and that's maybe not the best phrasing, but it got me thinking. I've also had a chance to speak to this person here. I would really like to get involved in this world again. If the right opportunity arises, I have some great skills and experience that could complement those, of you or what your company is trying to do. If you know of any potential match, please let me know. If you are open to discussing this further, please let me know. Either way, thanks and best regards. And this basic script got me a lot of consulting work. Okay, people would, I don't remember what the success rate was, but it got me 10, 15 clients, maybe in a year, something like that. So this is obviously going to vary, but that gives you an example of some of the things you could say. If you met with the person and you kind of clicked as people, you had a free-flowing conversation, you asked them about them, what they thought about the industry they were in and where it's going, and what the biggest challenges are, and the skills necessary to really ace working in that industry. And you had a great conversation about this, and they had a great time telling you all this. And you don't drag it on to the point where it gets tedious. after half an hour or an hour, you say, look, I said half an hour, so I'm going to be professional and stick to that. Although I'm really loving this, and I'd love to hear, more, another half an hour of you telling me this. But I said half an hour. I'm going to cap it at half an hour. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Would I be able to contact you if I have any more questions? Hopefully they say yes. Then you go away the next day, you send them this thank you note. And what has happened is that some people have contacted me and said, yeah, I have some work here that, we're looking to get someone to do, are you interested in that? And then it would just go into that, So this is hopefully, I guess, an example of how informational interviews can be used to get a job, to get consulting or contract work, to further your career. They are an alternative to going through what I guess people would call the standard channels of recruitment and selection, where you answer a job ad and you send in a job application and you interview with a sort of, successive rounds of interviews and recruiters until you finally talk to a hiring manager, and then hopefully they select you. This is an alternative. This usually works a lot better, especially for people who are changing careers. It is, I guess, a way of tapping the hidden job market. It's a way of sort of getting a rapport with somebody without having to, be applying for a job. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. This is something that I've used quite a bit, and I highly encourage other people to investigate it. Okay, I wouldn't say this constitutes an entire job search strategy, but this would be one of the things you would have in your job search strategy. This would be more of a higher level type thing. As always, you would go through networking as your mainstay here. But I hope this has been interesting. If you have any questions, we haven't had too much questions today, but that's okay. I chose not to promote this live stream today in advance. I'm going to sort of be promoting them in arrears, after they're done. So when people click on a link, they can actually watch something instead of it says tune in Sunday. For those of you who are still listening, thank you very much for your attention. I do appreciate you guys. If you have any questions, you can contact me through this channel or through my main YouTube channel, The Company's Expert. Also, I have some Facebook groups. The biggest one is called Get Hired, The Company's Expert. So if you want a place to share job search strategies and tips and talk to like-minded people and a little bit of support, peer support, that's a great place to go. There's a link in the description. And that's really it. Thank you very much. Once again, thank you to AT for the questions. And you guys are awesome. And I wish you nothing but the best. So thanks for tuning in. You guys take care, and I'll see you next Sunday, same time. That's 2 p.m. Central Time in North America. That would be what? That would be noon on the West Coast. Okay. Mountain. Was it Mountain Time? No, Atlantic, Pacific Coast. And there'll be 3 p.m. on the East Coast. So Eastern Standard Time in the United States. And tune in if you have any questions. And I'm here to just answer general questions too. Okay. Thanks very much, everybody. You guys take care, and I'll see you on the next one.